Hello and welcome to Kitco Mining with me, Paul Harris, here in Dawson City in Yukon, Canada at the Yukon Mining Investment Conference. Today with great pleasure to be joined by Scott Berdahl, CEO of Snowline Gold, arguably the hottest name, the most exciting name in gold exploration. Good morning, Scott.
Morning, Paul.
Now, I was here last year at this event, and at that moment in time, pretty much nobody had heard of Snowline Gold. It's been a whirlwind 12 months for you, I imagine. How would you sort of summarize what's happened to you and the company over the past year?
I mean, it's been transformative, certainly. Ultimately, it's we've had a great proof of concept discovery for a regional scale idea that we're pursuing, and at that discovery called Valley on our Rogue project, we've just had hit after hit in terms of both good mineralized intervals, but also checking the boxes for what we'd want to see in terms of finding not just an exciting discovery, but finding potentially a world-class mineable asset. And so it comes down to good grades, big intervals, consistent mineralization throughout the holes, beautiful geometry of the mineralization. We're seeing now good metallurgy, and even just the location in the middle of a big, broad, flat valley. It's a mountainous area, but the actual site of the discovery is just ideally situated to be able to extract things and to do so with a relatively low strip ratio and a quick payback again with the grade distribution. So really just hit after hit of boxes checked that we wanted to see checked. So it's been fantastic.
Well, congratulations. I had the pleasure and privilege to be on the site visit yesterday to see Valley with my own eyes, and it was very, very impressive. And it's not, a lot of people in the industry are seeing that as well. Agentis Capital earlier this week put out an independent research report. They're estimating the initial resource at, I think, around 9 million ounces. They're looking at a potential 500,000 ounce a year production possibility. So a lot of people think that Valley is the real deal. There's a lot of impressive things on the site visit, and obviously the geology and the scale potential is one of those, or some of those. But I'd like to touch on some of the other things that I saw and were obvious to me. You talk a lot, or the company talks a lot about doing things right, and you can see that in your camp, in your site. You're one of the first exploration companies to install solar panels to power your operation. And it's not just installing solar panels for the environmental benefits and potential cost benefits. There's also a very real community benefit in your relationship with the local First Nation, which is the Nacha Nyak Dun. I've probably mispronounced that, apologies to them. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about and why that is an important aspect of what you're doing.
Sure. We are exploring on the traditional territory of the Nacha Dun with the Valley discovery, and they're a group that is familiar with mining. Victoria Gold is right in their backyard, as well as Hecla's Keno Hill project. And so from the start, we've tried to build a strong working relationship. And as someone born and raised in the Yukon, and now raising a family in the Yukon, it's home to me. And I want to see a company that is good for the Yukon, and building strong, collaborative, beneficial relationships with the First Nations in the territory is a key part of that. And so from the inception of the company, we've been having those dialogues and trying to build just those open lines of communication, because that's the key. Clearly, you work towards agreements and that sort of a thing, but just having the dialogue open results in a lot of things you might not have initially thought about. And this solar project is an example of that, where it came from talking with the development corporation and just really having coffee with them from time to time and talking about what we're doing, what we'd like to do, what they're doing, what they'd like to do, and coming up with ideas. We have a lot of ideas that are just that, and others that have been actionable and we've put into practice, such as the solar panel array. So that's something that we were interested as a company on our own as well. But you look at the capex of installing a big 27 kilowatt solar facility in camp, and the associated battery bank and everything else, and it just doesn't make sense for a junior to do that. But then you look at the development corporation, who are thinking along similar lines, and they have aspirations to own more energy infrastructure in their traditional territory. And so, and for them, that capex makes a lot of sense. If they have a client who be willing to sign a lease of several years, they're still going to own the equipment, whether or not we're using it. And so it came out as a strong win-win for us. It aligns very closely with our values. and reduces our carbon footprint out there, and it just makes for a nicer camp environment, not having a big diesel generator chugging away all the time. And yeah, it allows us to sidestep that capex hit and builds a stronger relationship and with benefits to the local economy.
Excellent. Definitely a big positive there. Let's talk a little bit more about Valley. Valley, as I say, you came onto people's awareness a year ago. You're putting out some very long hits of relatively high grade, 2-3 grams per ton, and quite consistent 2-3 grams per ton over 100, 200 meters. So it's really set the exploration world alight. So this year you've got a 10,000 meter drilling program at Valley. What's the aim there? Where do you want to advance Valley to with that?
Basically de-risking and getting a much better understanding of what's there. And so last year we were really aggressive in our step outs and trying to get a sense of the size of the playing field, which we more or less have. But within that there are very large gaps, and so there's still technically, I suppose, it's all infill, or for the most part it's within the footprint of what we drilled last year. But there are still huge unknowns in terms of the margins between, where does this high grade end, where does it go here? Even bigger than just the gaps between drill collar sites. There are large volumes of rock that when you look at it in 3 dimensions, nothing has been done here, and yet it's perspective. And so this year's program will really give us a very good understanding, tightening up that structure and actually establishing a grid there to give us sort of a objective look at it, just predetermined drill sites and a really high degree of confidence. You look at the mineralization and the continuity that we're seeing in those intervals. You mentioned the 2 or 3 grams per ton. It's it's not like there's a 30 gram per ton that's smeared out to create that grade over that interval. It's really generally, when you get a 3 gram per ton interval, a lot of those assays are around 3 grams per ton. It's you look at our cap values and capping it at 10 grams per ton, and it really doesn't bring down the overall grade very much. And so I bring that up just because it makes it a lot easier to understand what's there versus a structurally controlled system. And so we already have a decent idea, just back of envelope internally, based on the drilling from last year, but there's a lot of room to grow with that tightening up of the understanding and de-risking and really showing the world that Valley's the real deal.
Okay, with Argentus coming out with their estimate of 9 million ounces, did you raise your eyebrows at that, or is that sort of in line with your thinking?
I'm not sure what my eyebrows did when I read that number. I'm generally not aware of what they're doing, but I mean, again, one thing that I think is really beneficial about, or a big positive about Valley is that it's easy to understand. And so as a bulk tonnage target, it really comes down to grade and dimension. And so it's not like a more complex structurally hosted deposit where you have all kinds of chutes, and depending on one person's interpretation of how these chutes might connect or might not connect, you get a wide range of estimates. And you look at recent examples, I think looking at analyst estimates, and I'm just speaking off the cuff here, I don't have specific estimates in mind, but I think around the time that Great Bear was taken out by Kinross, analyst estimates ranged from 2.5 million ounces to 20 million ounces, and so that's a huge spread. And our analyst estimates are coming in a lot tighter than that. I think that has to do with just the easier to understand mineralized system that we're dealing with.
Okay, and another big positive, or another big coup, if you like, you've attracted investment from B2 Gold. They're now a 9.9% shareholder. Is that very much a passive investment, or are they able to sort of, the channels open for them to sort of give you advice about how they, as a major mining company, would like to see things progress, or the work quality they like to see when they're looking at a junior?
There are no official channels like that, but we're of course open to suggestions like that from any number of companies. And in fact, I reached out to quite a number of companies to inform our drill plan for this year, just saying, what would you like to see done out here? And that was very informative. I think that's kind of a win-win question where nobody really sacrifices anything. If I don't think there's any strategic advantage to withholding what you would want to see drilled on a deposit. And from our point of view, it allows us to kind of approach it from the not the lowest common denominator, but the pattern or the setup that would satisfy all parties. And so that was really beneficial. And that's not with B2 specifically. There's no formal arrangement there. We've been careful to have them as an excited and engaged. We're very grateful for the investment and very happy to have them as a shareholder. But at the same time, we're not trying to tie ourselves to any mast just yet. And so we're happy for their input. We're very happy for their investment and their support. But otherwise, we just have our heads down and we're looking to advance both the project and the district.
Thank you, Scott. Now, Valley, obviously a discovery that's really sort of making Snowline's name, but there's a lot more to come. You're also going to put 2,000 meters into Gracie this year, which tell us a little bit about Gracie. My understanding it's a similar target, but it's blind, so it's hasn't had any erosion, so it's potentially fully intact, a fully intact intrusive.
That's right. So at Valley, I mean, it's in the bottom of a valley, and you can see where it goes up, where the intrusion goes up on the hillside. You can see that potentially 100 or a couple of 100 meters have been eroded away from this intrusion. And so we don't know what the mineralization profile within that eroded away part is, but historically the tops of these systems are the most prospective. And so given the grades that we're seeing right at surface in Valley, we know that a good degree of mineralized rock has been eroded away. Gracie is a geophysical anomaly very similar to Valley, about 4 kilometers away. It's complemented by strong Hornfels alteration, so we know there's an intrusion cooking those rocks. Also complemented by a geochemical signature that's very similar to Valley. And so the prize there is potentially an intact Valley. If we could see that same style of mineralization that we have at Valley, but with that the entire carapace of the intrusion fully intact, that's a very attractive exploration target. Of course, there's a double-edged sword depending on where we find it, but I think just the presence of Valley itself really lowers the bar or increases what might be possible with a prospect nearby in terms of what we need to find for it to be economical.
Okay, so when will those first holes be drilled, and when do you think you'll be able to get the results from those?
Those holes are being drilled right now, and we've actually increased our assay turnaround time substantially from last year. We're looking at generally sub a month so far, and so yeah, we could potentially have results out in the not too distant future. Call it 6 weeks or so.
Okay, now you're trading about $6.40 Canadian. You've been one of the standout gold exploration companies over the past 12 months from that point of view. You've got 35 million Canadian in the bank at the moment, so you're kind of insulated from the capital markets to a certain degree for the next couple of years. What's been your experience of the capital markets in what has been a very challenging time for most gold explorers? Yeah,
so I mean, we're currently trading around 460. 640 would be fantastic, but we'll work on that. But our experience in the capital markets has been we've been very fortunate, I suppose, to be finding a discovery. And I think there's a bit of a selection effect where sentiment in the sector is so dire that only a few projects really get selected. And it's not you don't see the massive allocation of capital to early stage projects. So we were lucky to kind of thread a needle there with very early hits and very promising hits on a very good target. And that's allowed us to navigate these pretty tumultuous seas otherwise.
Okay, thank you for correcting me. I think 640 is the market capitalization rather than the share price. Well, looks like there's a lot more to come from Snowline Gold. Scott Berdahl, CEO, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Paul. I'll be happy to be here.
And stay tuned to Kitco Mining for more from the Yukon Mining Investment Conference.